That is a stupid idea.
A couple of months ago, I noticed that everyone was talking about the new HBO series, The Last of Us. I knew there was a game, The Last of Us, but never played it. Never looked into it, but I had to find out what all the hype was about. So I started watching the series, and so many people said, and I fully agree, it was amazing. People talked about how well the series portrayed the game, how accurate scenes played out in the series, and just the overall acting was brilliant. Watching the series without playing the game made me really curious about the game itself. The Last of Us launched in 2013 exclusively on PlayStation 3, and in 2014 they launched the remastered version for the PlayStation 4. So I decided to play the remastered version for the PlayStation 4 that came out in 2014. Same game, but better graphics, frame rates, and resolution. With the HBO series still fresh in the mind, I wanted to get into this ASAP. Looking at The Last of Us, I can now understand what the hype was about. In the simplest terms, The Last of Us is one of the best video games of all time, with an awesome score of 95 on Metacritic and an equally high 9.2 user score from fans. That stems not only from its strong gameplay, but from its compelling story and from the way both halves of that equation work together. So, if you haven't played The Last of Us, or watched the HBO series for that matter, I highly recommend both, the game and the series.
What are you doing?
It's all right. Come here. Come here. Hey. Hurry up. Come on.
Hey there. So fucking cool. I think what really impressed him was the fact that I didn't turn into a monster.
If she so much as twitches, don't.
Okay.
On the Battlefield 1 side, there was not a lot of action, not a lot of gameplay. Like I said before, I do play BF1 on the UAE servers, where the ping is around 130 milliseconds, which is playable. But for more than a month, when I joined these servers, my ping was over 250 milliseconds. Obviously, there was some routing changes from my ISP side, but unfortunately, there was nothing I can do about it. For the fun of it, I played a bit on the campaign mode, hardcore mode, which is really fun actually, and really tough. These short clips I've got here was in 2 consecutive games that I played earlier in the week, when I noticed that, hey, I've got my connection back, 130 milliseconds. Bit rusty, but just great to be able to join a server and actually have a fighting chance again.
We have taken objective Edward.
Battlefield 2042. What can I say? So many developments on Battlefield 2042 at the moment, but I'm not here to talk about the news and these developments of the game itself. Let's start at the player count. On the South African servers, there's only a handful of players playing 2042 at the moment. Well, I'm on PlayStation 4, so together with the Xbox One, there's not a lot of guys playing this. When a new season drops, you can find a full server, but as the season goes on, numbers do drop drastically. 90% of the time when I try and find a game, I can only find a couple of players on a portal server. Then it's like maybe 10 or 15 players. So most of the time you play against a couple of normal players and the rest are made of AI. Really not ideal. So this is also the reason I've played 2042 only a handful of times over the last month and a bit. If you look at the gameplay itself, Battlefield 2042 is not the game we saw when it was launched. At the moment, it's a much more polished game. If it was launched the way it is now, I reckon it would have been seen as one of the great battlefields. I really do think so. But unfortunately the game is seen as a failure because of all these issues, the lack of components that made a Battlefield game great. If I just moved over from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5, Xbox One or Series X or PC, I would definitely get 2042. It feels like a Battlefield game again. I had my fair share of negative comments on Battlefield 2042, like I have on all Battlefield games. But one thing that's really great to see is the effort from DICE to fix issues and bring back the feeling of playing a Battlefield game. I can't fault these guys on what they've achieved in the last couple of months.
Twee dood.
So baie AI.
Ek is uit. O, hier is baie. Word 'n ander.
Tot maar respawn. Ons nog ouens wat van agterop kom.
Fucking hell. Ek's in die middel moet.
Dis net terugkels.
Then, Call of Duty, Warzone 2. As someone that normally just played all the Battlefield games, the latest edition of Warzone, to me, is great. I did play the previous Warzones, but there was still something to it that I did not enjoy. Might have been the ridiculous movement mechanics of the game, the pace. There was just something that did not make it that appealing to me. With the latest edition, especially modes like DMZ, my whole perception of the game changed. I enjoy the more realistic movement. I enjoy that you've got a chance to kill someone with ground loot weapons. I enjoy the gunfights you have against other players on DMZ, some that might last for 10 minutes. I enjoy the AI, well, sometimes ridiculous by their sheer numbers and aimbot abilities. I enjoy the missions. Something for everyone. I was never a huge fan of COD multiplayer games. The single player campaigns was always brilliant, but the way the multiplayer modes was played was just not for me. I still feel the same on current modes like 6v6, Mosh Pit, things like that. Just not for me. But then again, you get the modes like Ground War, 32 versus 32, Plunder, and then my favorite, DMZ. I'm not big into the battle royales, never have been, and probably never will. But DMZ changed the way I felt about COD multiplayer game modes. Another great feature is, if I can call it that, all platforms can play this together. From PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, all Xboxes, PC. So there's never a struggle to find any games right here in South Africa. Myself and Cameron Birch have teamed up on DMZ for the last couple of months, and I just might start streaming some of these sessions. I'm sure that some of you have noticed how popular these DMZ streams have become through guys like Stod, Westy, Jack, Stone Mountain and Onic. I just feel that this game mode, DMZ, is way better than some people make it out to be. Then, finally, as this plays out in the background, some might have wondered what happened to me on Battlefield 4, PlayStation 3. Well, after another failed attempt last month to get some game time going and rearranging my office, my PlayStation 3 ended up in a cupboard, tucked away. on Battlefield 4 on my PlayStation 4. I joined a server earlier this week to give it a shot. Well, to put it this way, when you empty a full magazine on an enemy player 10 meters away and you can't hit him once, you know your connection to the European servers are just a waste of time. Gaming should be a fun and relaxing hobby, not the opposite.
Ek's nou ook by 'n banker deuring.
Ah shit, ek het freaking dinge sis.
Die factory wing kort jy 2 sleutels.
Hierdie een is klaar op die factory en daar was klaar een en ek het die ander een ingesit, maar ek het niks plate nie. En ek het 'n sentry gun.
Ek wil gaan vinnig hierdie een uitcheck aan as ek nou daar. Tenminste
Ultra One, activity has increased in the area. Keep your eyes open.
draak my net vandaan so ek al weer. Ja. Was baie AI.
Het jy nou net gesnipe?
Nope, ek is baie ver weg geraak.
Wow, GG. Nice.